Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our new digs here. Um, so, when I scheduled this, I guess I should have sent an email out to more people to be, but I thought I've done this enough times over the years that everybody was used to it, but I guess not necessarily. So, the purpose of this meeting is for us to discuss the 15 bills that we have retained, retained, and discuss what we want to, which ones we want to do a deep dive on. Generally, what I would recommend for any of these bills here is that is not necessarily to kill them. I would much more be interested in an interim study on anything that we can say at this moment we really don't have an answer, we don't have a resolution, but we like to keep the bill around so that if we did have a subject come up, or if we did have something, then we have a vehicle to work with, and we can have a reference point. So I've done this pretty much every year I've been a chair. So for some people, I guess it's kind of a new thought. So yes, so the first, the prevailing motion right at this point on any of these bills is interim study. That's the prevailing motion. That means we will keep it around. We'll continue to discuss it, but that at this point we don't see anything workable. If as we go through it, we can start saying, well, in this particular bill, there's this subject here or something there that we could do a deep dive on or spend a little more time on or learn on, and that would then be scheduled at a later date. We have to exec everything out by November, in which we'll then, get these 15 bills out, and of course they'd be on the House floor the first week of January. Okay. Any questions? We're not execing anything. Execing won't happen until later October.
Okay, can we still vote on anything?
What we want to do is just really is like I said, everyone, as far as I'm concerned, the prevailing motion on all these bills is interim study.
Okay,
Because we're keeping them as vehicles for discussion. Okay. In other words, if we didn't think that was true, we would have killed them
okay.
last, been, I would say the early part of the year, we would have killed them.
Do we have to vote on 15 to go to interim study?
We would, come October, we might do that, yes. Okay, come October. Unless there's some bill here that everybody could just say is, listen, there's nothing here and we're just wasting our time. But I guess I have to admit that when every bill that we had here, every bill had a grain of truth. And every bill had something that we could, we can work on,
Yeah.
but that it's just not ready for prime time. Okay?
Yep.
All right. The sounds really good. Are you guys all hearing me really well? Because I feel like I can hear myself really well. Right. I'm not like the committee room. Okay. Senate Bill 247, prohibiting network exclusion for pharmacies that refuse to dispense a prescription for the PBM reimbursement that is below the pharmacy's acquisition cost. Okay. Yes, Representative Spear.
So I sat on the committee all summer, and I can't say it was a lot of fun, but we really did the
So the
work.
Senate had a study committee on this issue.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And the problem we have is that when we had the meeting last time, what was brought up as being the problem was very different than what we heard in the committee, in the study committee. So there needs to be some kind of a way to get these people talking to each other to tell us what is the consistent problem. So putting it on interim study is a good idea.
Okay. Any other discussion on this bill? Yeah, because what it brought up other stuff because it was, that putting that new concept that I never even heard of, these pharmacy. What was the other one? PSMs or something?
I'm sorry, would you say that again?
There was another part of the pharmacy that I didn't, there were There was another middleman that I didn't know even existed that provides the distribution to the PSAOs. Yes.
Yeah,
that was it.
PSAOs.
Yeah. So I never even heard of them in all my years. I never even heard of PSAOs until
Really?
this bill. But then to put them under the Consumer Protection Act is like really a stretch in my mind. That
This-
in this bill, it had them that we were going to regulate them under the Consumer Protection Act.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, then I guess so. That's a little
Because
strange
otherwise,
also.
otherwise we would be licensing them, in John Hunt's rule of
I see.
licensure. So, okay, all right. So we will. Everybody's okay with that. All right. Next, relative to treatment and alternative to opiates, I do see the sponsor here. And are you okay with interim study of this bill, or do we have a language amendment from the insurance department? Okay. All right. So I guess you got. Okay. So we'll have a hearing on that amendment once it's been drawn up. Okay. All right. Needs amendment. Okay. Moving right along. Providing self-funded employer health benefit plans access to their claims data. So, do we really need this bill? Was there a problem getting this claims data, or where are we at with this bill? You can come up here and then Representative Spear has a comment.
The comment I have is that during the course of discussing the bill as it exists the way
Yep.
it's said right here, an amendment came in that seemed kind of interesting and the whole bill changed. So I don't know exactly where we're at anymore.
Right. Okay.
So
Do you-
that amendment, Rep. Spear, is off the table. So
That-
it's just the underlying bill. You never voted on it.
Right.
Actually attach it to the bill, and we're not pursuing that.
But it was a good idea.
Yes, it'll be coming in a different bill, but not attached to the.
That'll come in as
Okay.
as a separate bill. It's a separate piece of legislation.
Okay.
So stay tuned for that in January.
Okay.
Okay.
So this bill we had presented because we wanted to provide an incentive to incentivize self-funded plans to opt into the CHIS. So the CHIS is our all-payer claims database, and because of Supreme Court law, we are not our precedent. We cannot require self-funded plans to submit their claims data to the CHIS. All commercially regulated, or all the plans we regulate, do submit to the CHIS. So this is kind of a mechanism to incentivize them to opt in to submit their data to the
So
CHIS.
what
if
is
they-
CHIS?
That's the all-payer claims database. So it's the Comprehensive Health Information System, maybe? Yeah. There's too many acronyms.
Well,
But that's
yeah.
our all-payer claims database where we collect all of the claims information for our regulated plans. It also includes the state employee plan and Medicaid plans also report into there. So we're just trying to, provide an incentive for more self-funded plans to opt in. And if they do that, they will be entitled to a cut of their data from that CHIS.
Okay. So was this like Tyler Brennan's the idea where we were trying to gather all the different pieces so we really knew what a procedure cost? Okay.
Yeah, all of this information we use.
Can I just call this Tyler's Law now? Right? Okay.
Yeah, we
So-
use this information for New Hampshire Health Costs, which is the website that has all that information about what certain procedures cost at different places in the state.
Okay. All right. So at this point, what do we want to do with this bill? Is this no longer needed now, or are we?
It's ready to go. When we were doing the public hearing on the bill itself, absent the amendment, that was non-germane. There was some concern raised by the committee relative to privacy relating, being able to identify.
Right. All
evidence.
those. Yeah.
And we could offer an amendment to the bill that would address that. That protection is in our rules as they currently stand, so we could codify that in statute to ensure that protection stands, if that would make the committee feel better about the bill.
Probably.
can
Okay,
offer an amendment.
so you'll have an amendment for that one also?
Yes.
All right, so I'm not gonna, just telling you ahead of time, I like to do those two at the same time.
Okay.
The two nights, okay. Okay. All right, 6:48, glucose monitoring. Is somebody here for wanna? Yeah, just, yes, come on up, come on. So, Representative Spear?
The idea was that we were supposed to try to find a way to get the price down because it was very impactful to the premiums. And I was not able to get anybody because of my situation, but I haven't heard that anybody else did either. And that's where we kind of left it.
Right. And that's in terms of the glucose monitoring for making it, because this was going to be like anybody could get it, have the monitoring.
Yeah.
Is my memory, that was and that was a problem,
It
was
is.
to mandate that everybody could get it whichever way they wanted it.
Yeah, so I had very strong resistance to this bill because we would definitely like to have, definitely like to see that everybody can get access to the CGM because it can be very preventative and the cost that the insurance companies, and we are thinking that it might increase the cost, that actually in the long run can be down because you actually disallow people to go to that level. Right now, the insurance companies are giving only when you're on insulin.
Right.
But basically you're waiting for the patient to go to the highest level of diabetes in order to get this. But I know with experience that a lot of times this can prevent you to go to that level where insulin therapy is very expensive for the insurance companies. So this can actually save money to the insurance companies rather than the way it is projected that this is going to increase the premium. That's my strong opinion.
Okay.
And I know people who are using it
Right.
when they're not on insulin and they're able to control their glucose monitoring, they can control their diabetes so that they don't progress to the more dangerous level of taking insulin.
Right, but you could do that now with the pin, stick your pin and with
The pin you can just take 2-3 times the test to see your glucose
Yeah.
level. But what this does is that this all tells you when your glucose level goes down. I mean, my wife, she's just on the first phase, using metformin and Jardian. But it's not the high glucose level that's problem. A lot of time it goes low, and you don't know when it goes low. If you take the test, you take test 2 times, 3 times in the day maybe, but it could be okay at that time. It can go low at different times depending upon the food, depending upon your activity. A lot of parameters are there. That's not,
But
that controls you to go down.
Wouldn't you, if you did it on a regular basis, you started out and did it on a regular basis, wouldn't you get to start to see a pattern at what time of day or when you are, or what you're doing, that you notice that there's a dip and then focus in on taking?
It's not very predictable because, like I said, depending upon sometimes if your body mechanism, sometimes if you do a little bit more work,
Right.
the glucose level can really go down that time. And sometimes she actually takes some fruit or sugar thing so that, the glucose level being low is actually very dangerous as well, rather than just glucose level going high, which is a problem with diabetes. They can go, and this monitor gives you a beep sound. Moment it goes below like 65 or 70 something, the threshold level is being set. It shouldn't go below that. So a lot of times this actually saves you. It tells you that, hey, you got to take something. The fluctuation is the main problem. It's not the high level, because people with diabetes, they can have 180, 200, and they won't have any problem, because that's very normal for diabetic people to get 180, 175 glucose level. But the down part,
I hear you. It's
Yeah.
the down.
the fluctuation is the main problem. That
Right.
can affect
So
the organs.
to respond to your point, which is that in the long run, this is a good thing for people.
Yeah,
okay?
this is
So unfortunately, almost every procedure, anything we do, that has always been true. The issue that this committee is faced with is that we have to look at a mandate not as, oh boy, we're going to save some money down in the future. We have to look at what that mandate has an impact on people's premium this year.
Yeah, and on that, the insurance company can really tell more numbers. But I feel that if the insulin therapy, which the insurance company they cover everything, that is more expensive for them rather than covering the CGM. Why do you want people to not be able to manage their glucose and then
Well,
go to the next
we'd
level?
love to have people manage their glucose. Yeah, we're not arguing against the people to do that.
And this helps
We
you.
have that technology, or if they can get one of these things. But the idea that we're going to mandate that it would have a short-term impact, economic impact on our premiums, that it would be so large that whatever savings you're going to say, well, we'll save in the future, they won't have that insurance company anymore. It won't be.
I
it'll
would
be-
defer. I would defer the quantitative analysis to the insurance company to tell how much premium is going to increase. And I think I heard last time in a session that there are some glucose-related doctors and medical practices.
The numbers are very
and
expensive.
they-
These things are really
they,
expensive.
And they mentioned that it's not in the future. Even in the short term, also this can actually.
All right, Representative Miles.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support either just passing this bill on to the circular file or the prevailing motion to interim study. This is not something that we should mandate insurance companies to cover, especially if they're not meeting the current medical necessity criteria. Furthermore, there are many alternative ways, over-the-counter ways to monitor your blood sugar if you so choose, whether you're just curious and like biofeedback, or whether you truly want to know your numbers from an hourly basis to, every 4-hour basis. There are ways to do that without any mandatory coverage. This bill also cited in its original form that there would be no prescription required from a physician. So I don't think this bill needs to go forward.
Okay, one more. Yeah, right. Yes.
I was given a copy of the diabetes journals.
Yeah.
And in it says, although BGM in people on non-insulin therapies has not consistently shown clinically significant reduction in A1C levels. So right now it's at a very low recommendation. It's just not proving to help that people.
Interesting. Okay.
I just want to add one
So-
last point. I just want one last
No,
point.
you're all set. You're all set.
Okay.
You made your point. We
No,
got
no,
it. Now, are you
No,
going
no,
to tell
no.
me you're going to say something different than
Yeah,
what you've
different.
already said before?
Yeah, something different.
Okay, this is going to be interesting.
Okay. The difference is that I didn't know about the bill that this can go without prescription. What I was asking for is that as long as the medical provider prescribes that, they don't prescribe it everybody. As long as the medical doctor prescribes that, we should go with the medical doctor recommendation, not with the insurance company's mandates. That's all I was saying.
Okay, all right. That is a different. I congratulate you on offering up something else.
Thank you.
Okay, so you're not testifying. What I want is to give you an opportunity to at least respond to the conversation we had
My
here.
head's shaking.
And then say basically, I think this bill is headed to an interim study.
Good.
Okay, and so at least we'll continue to talk about it, and we have other ideas. How do we get a physician? How physicians feel about prescribing it, which I think at this point it already is a prescribable procedure. That the physician prescribes it. Now, the insurance company may refuse it.
Yes.
Okay, and then it would go to external grievance. You have a grievance process, and the doctor will have to make some case why this patient really needs this machine. So, other than that, is there anything else you'd like to offer?
I'm a mother of a type 1 diabetic. She was diagnosed at
But
5.
type 1 diabetic, this is not a problem.
This
with
has
type
nothing to
1,
do with
right?
that.
I was here because supplies will be covered without subject to deductible. I mean, every year I am paying my $6,000 to $7,000 deductible up in the front of the beginning of every single
So
year.
you're saying for type 1,
Yes.
juvenile diabetes,
Yep.
that you still have co-pays and deductibles.
Yes.
And that what you liked about this bill was the idea that we would waive that for
Yeah.
juvenile diabetics.
I'd like to keep some money. And the fact that she's going to be 26 next year, she is going to have to start paying for that.
Right.
Along with all of her costs for an insulin pump. And thankfully, the insulin has dropped, but it's still costly. Nothing is free for a type 1 diabetic. And-
That's a very interesting question.
And I would definitely say that, yes, a continuous glucose monitor was a lifesaver. When she was first diagnosed, it was the understanding of the Juvenile Diabetes Association that kids were, oh, it's okay if their blood sugars go all over the place. It's not. It is causing them damage from the moment that they are diagnosed. Their blood vessels are damaged. When their fluctuations go up and down and up and down, her blood vessels are being damaged. Her blood vessels in her eyes, her blood vessels in her heart, her blood vessels in her kidneys. Everything is being damaged by these constant up and downs. And no, you don't know what's going to happen from day to day. My child would all of a sudden, there'd be a fire alarm. Her adrenaline would sky high. Her insulin would not be able to cover that adrenaline high because they're both hormones. And she'd all of a sudden be 468. She didn't eat anything. All that happened was a fire drill went off. It's also, they can all of a sudden start getting a virus. I went to the doctor once and said, hey, she's not feeling well. He's like, well, I said, but look at her blood sugars. Look at the things. And yes, we started off with the glucose monitors and pricking her fingers 8 to 10 times a day. 8 to 10 times a day for a child. Do you know what that does to them? Instead of having to do one glucose monitor, and
So,
now they're
right,
going to 10 to 12
Right, so now you
days.
do have the monitor. So how much is the copay and deductible? How much are you paying for copay and deductibles?
We
because
have
you
to
the
pay
monitor?
until our deductible's covered. So our deductible right now is $6,000.
Oh, okay. And so you're in the small group market, right? You
We have a
health insurance?
PPO, yes.
Okay, you're in the small group market, and the deductible is $6,000, and you're eating that up right out of the block because
Yes, for the last 20 years.
right.
We've paid, like, it's diabetes, type 1 diabetes is one of the most expensive diseases to have, more so than having cancer, is what we were told when she was diagnosed.
Obviously, I'm very familiar with juvenile diabetes. My wife's families have several members of the family, so that is an interesting item.
And there's more and more types
Didn't
of
we-
diabetes
so
being
we
discovered.
did.
And you also have to realize within the type 1,
We
domain.
dropped. We did the actual insulin. We kept the insulin at
Yes.
$100 a month.
Yeah, that's just recently.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Well, this committee did
We
that. Believe it
appreciate
or not,
that.
we did that.
Yes,
Okay.
but then you also have the cost of the insulin
But
pump
now we have the issue.
and the continuous glucose
now we
monitor,
have the
all the
issue
wonderful
is the
technology.
pump, all the other stuff that
Yes.
goes with that.
And now there's also a device where you can have it implanted under your skin that you can put
Right.
it there for 6 months, and now they're almost up to a year. Senseonics.
That's
Is-
exciting.
It is very
Good thing.
exciting.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
what happens with even in a type 1, my daughter never followed the rules. Like her doctor's office say, oh, do this if this happens. We had to rewrite the rules for my daughter because her body processed insulin, processed food, metabolized things differently. So once we got the continuous glucose monitor and we're able to see where things were trending, we could also then with the pump get her insulin dialed in.
We get that. We
and
get that. Yeah.
perfect. I mean, perfect, within range. Her doctors took the readout and sat there and framed
said-
it up. So she has amazing A1C amounts. So I don't not find that that study,
I think
whatever you
that
got,
was
inaccurate.
not about type 1. That was more for anybody who's
right.
taking
But
it.
anyone that is on the diabetes,
Okay.
or
Well, that's
anything
all the more
needs it.
reason why we want to keep this bill alive and
Yes,
and have this
I'd
conversation.
appreciate it. And
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, and
No
thank you for
problem.
sharing.
thank you.
Okay. Okay, so at this point, what I'm going to do is do a little homework on this and whether this is an issue we should drive down and see what the economic impact would be on if we were to cover this for type 1
A
diabetes.
question?
Yep.
Would different insurance companies have different deductibles?
Well, you individually you choose that too. I mean, your employer, the big problem now is the issue. the people who we affect in our legislation is the individuals and small group employer. That employer actually chooses which plan they're going to go with, and that's who it's so yes, there's a direct effect. What we do.
So we
be
would
on
have a
the small employer.
the small employer, the small group employer. If the deductible was
The
more-
small employer would have
would have to
their premium.
decide again, if we mandated it, if they're gonna cover it at all. I mean,
No, there would be, if
It's
we
a feedback effect.
mandate, yeah, because right now type 1 is absolutely covered. Okay.
I mean, a
insurance is-
deductible, I'm only talking
Right,
about
the deductible copay. So we go back to what we did with the insulin. But I think that, we did it and then the federal government came back, if my memory. So I'm looking at the insurance department. But I remember what I said, we did it like to 130 or something, and then it was the feds that came back with 100, and then that was actually federal legislation. That ended up being that $100, my memory, I don't know. But I know that we did something first, and then it was for, oh, we only did it for Medicare? Okay, excuse me. We did it for small group, yes, right. So it would be interesting to see what the economic impact of what that mandate was, and then how much, what the impact would be. So this is worth doing, having a financial impact study, one of those infamous, what I call it, Liz Murphy study. And the individual, right, excuse me, non-group, yeah, individual market. So it's the individual and small group is what we regulate. It's, yeah. I hate to say this, but you had to come to the mic.
So part of what we need to keep in mind when we're talking about capping deductibles and copays and stuff
Right.
like that is that the way individual market is set up is you have your metal levels. So you have your bronze,
Right.
silver, gold, platinum,
Exactly.
and those have a certain actuarial value. So that's the benefit richness of what you can expect. So that signifies what percentage the consumer would be expected to pay. So if you cap something for one condition and say you don't have to pay any more than, $100, those costs need to shift into something else. So it's not that the overall cost of the plan is going to go up. It's just that those costs may be shifted from people to diabetes to people with some other condition. And we've been, over the years, there's different caps getting put in for different types of conditions. The more caps you put in, the more the cost for those other services that aren't capped need to go up so that your
To offset
actuarial
it.
value stays within that range for that metal plan.
Right.
So it's a little bit more complicated than that. We can see, we can try to do some analysis and see if we see anything, but because of the way the metal plans are set up, they have to have a set actuarial value. And I don't think
Yeah.
that the fact that you cap the copay for one condition is going to change the overall expense of the plan. It's just going to those cost sharing is going to shift into other services.
Right. Well, I guess to me, the individual, obviously, if a person has that situation, the individual can choose a different plan, and then which directly affects how much their deductible is.
Mhm.
When it comes to the small employer, okay, now the employer's making the decision. The employee has no control over that, other than going and pleading their case to convince the employer to change their deductible, which I'm sure happens plenty. But it would be very interesting then really to look at, in my mind, that the individual has the power to vary that by choosing their plan. It's the employer benefit one
Yeah.
that I'm interested in knowing what the impact would be, in terms of how much we can do the impact that deductible and in copay in that small group, because obviously those levels are all over the map in terms of what they are.
We can do some analysis and see kind of
I-
what's
that
out
would
there
be
for the plans
that would be
now
worth a
and
hearing
what
on
we
that.
see.
Okay,
Okay.
so we're going to focus. We will do a diabetes glucose on the idea of what's the impact of the small group market if we were to try to cover juvenile diabetes testing. Okay, onward and upward. 706, relative to prohibiting insurance company from conducting an audit of provider services. Okay, so we're, okay, insurance and audit of provider services that have been delivered, but before payment has been made to such, the infamous clawback.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, DJ Betancourt, Commissioner of the Insurance Department. Michelle Heaton is behind me. You know her. She is the head of our Life and Health Division. So I had a conversation yesterday afternoon with the prime sponsor, Representative Gregg, and I think that she is pleased with what I would recommend, which is in line, I think, with what you're inclined to do. But I did want to provide the committee with a little bit of a report that I had promised you that I would do when you all decided to hang on to this bill last spring. So the chairman referenced that this is getting to the infamous clawback issue, but there are actually three separate components to this that have really come to the forefront as being a problem for a lot of providers. It has come prominently onto the radar of the department, I'd say, in the last 8 to 12 months. So what it speaks to fundamentally is the concept that insurance companies, from time to time, as they are monitoring the claims and the billing process for a provider, will have some red flag or some sort of red flags come onto the radar screen. It could be that they feel that the provider is erratically billing a particular code or had not been using a particular code previously and is now heavily utilizing that code. There are a number of different reasons why that red flag may go up. And so what it triggers at that point is overall an audit that will take place. And that audit oftentimes is accompanied by a process called prepayment review. Now, fundamentally, what these audits and prepayment review processes are attempting to do is to guard against fraud, which is obviously something that's very, very important. And so what I always tell the providers who are struggling with this is, let's talk about reform. Let's talk about how we can iron out some of the rough spots in this process. But I would not recommend eliminating or dramatically overhauling this process because you don't want to lose that fraud protection component to this process. So what will sometimes happen, and this gets to the quote-unquote infamous clawbacks, the audit will take place, the red flags will come on, the prepayment review may be put in place at that point, and then there'll be a clawback of claims that have been paid, the dollars that have been paid for claims in the past, those will be clawed back. And for a lot of providers, the real struggle comes in a number of different ways. The first is for some of the carriers, they have in their contract, in their network contract with the provider, they can auto draft out whatever they believe they need to claw back. And so the real struggle there for a lot of providers, particularly the smaller ones, is that these are small operations. Oftentimes in the behavioral health space in particular, you'll have a therapist who is both treating patients and also trying to run the back office operations. And so they'll sit down at their computer on a Thursday to begin the process of running payroll for their employees, and $5,000, $10,000 has vanished from the account. And obviously we hear about the stress that that causes because now they're in a bind to be able to make payroll. So we've had serious discussions within the department about how we can better manage this. And we have seen examples of some things that I find to be quite troubling. So the provider will get a letter in the mail, oftentimes, maybe an email that will say, we're putting you under prepayment review. We've done an audit here. The letter, in some cases, I don't love the tone of it. It's essentially kind of sort of implying that the provider may be engaged in some unethical practices or some improper practices. I don't think that's the best way in the world to get the conversation started, particularly because oftentimes the issue is not fraud or intentional misconduct. Oftentimes it's the provider's not a billing expert. Like I said, they're running the business part-time and they're serving clients the rest of the time. And so they've just gone sideways within the system. But regardless, what then troubles me is, and it's not across the board, but many times, the instruction that the provider is then given is not entirely clear because obviously when you get this letter, you're now in a panic because that prepayment review means that you've got to get a sign off, you've got to get permission in advance to be able to treat that individual because you're going to want to know after you've treated that individual that you're going to be able to be paid for that service. You're going to be able to bill for that service. So in a lot of respects, it really hampers the provider's cash flow and disrupts that cash flow. And so they obviously want to try to get that addressed as quickly as possible. And sometimes it's not as clear as to what the steps are as it should be. And then there's a customer service component to this that when they're given the number, they try to contact the individual that they're supposed to contact to work through this situation with. And oftentimes it's hard to get that individual on the phone, get them to work with you in a timely manner. And as I've said, in the midst of all of this, the business operation is greatly disrupted, the cash flow is greatly disrupted. We've also seen some isolated incidents where the look back period for this audit extends beyond what state law says. So audits are not supposed to go back farther than 12 months unless there is legitimate suspicion of fraud, in which case it can go longer because that's going to need more careful scrutiny, analysis, and investigation. Like I said, it's not as prominent as some of the other issues that we've identified, but it's still there. And there becomes a fairness component to that where you're asking somebody now to go back into records that 18, 24 months, that's just not practical in a lot of circumstances. But there's a lot of information that is often requested as part of these audit processes. And so to go beyond 12 months, again, is a real problem. So we at the department are going to try to approach this in a way that does not involve immediate legislation. The first is we had issued a bulletin, I want to say, what, Michelle, about a year ago or so? Maybe a little longer than that. So last spring, a little over a year ago, that really spelled out how this process is supposed to work as dictated by state law and the rules of the department. We need to tighten that up. And clearly, we were not as explicit as we needed to be. There's still some things that are going on that are falling outside of those rules and laws. So we're going to revamp that bulletin and make sure that everybody is crystal clear as to how this is supposed to work and what the expectations are. The second is our INS rules 1003, which deal with these types of issues, are up for renewal. So we are going to address the gaps in the issues that we've identified as part of that rulemaking process. That should be coming forward to GELCAR within the next 2 to 3 weeks. There will be new rules. Okay. I stand corrected on that. We're going to bring forward some new rules to deal with this issue and some others as well that we've identified. And then finally, we will be doing some targeted investigations to really get into the nuts and bolts of this and see exactly what the frequency of some of these problems are and where potentially, we don't know this for sure yet, where there may be a need for some statutory adjustments. So I think that your predilection to interim study this is a good one. I think that if you were to hold on to this as late as you are comfortable with in your process, I don't know exactly when you'd like to have everything wrapped up, but if you were to hold on to this until you're really ready to conclude your work for this year, I think that would be beneficial so that as we go through those other processes, if we do identify the need for a statute change, we've got the vehicle at the ready. What I would tell you is the bill as it's currently written does not address the issue that Representative Gregg and the others who prompted this bill to come forward are trying to get at. It's just a little clunky in terms of how they drafted it, but they are comfortable with the fact that the department is on top of this issue, how we're going to approach it, and the fact that it is a vehicle, but as it stands now, it is a bit flawed in terms of its effectiveness to address the issue that they want to address.
Any questions from anybody? Yes, Representative Burrows.
Just a quick question. I'm just curious, were the people who drafted the bill, did they confer with you before putting this together?
Yes, so I had spoken with Representative Gregg in the spring, and had made the same commitment to her that I made to you, that the bill as it was drafted was problematic, that I wanted to get a better understanding from her perspective what she was trying to address. And it was in line with what I suspected, but I didn't want to make an assumption. And so we did all of that work throughout the rest of the spring and the summer to really dig into this and understand what was going on. And we came up with the plan that I've outlined with respect to the bulletin and the adjustment to the rules and the investigations. And she was satisfied with that as the first real substantive step to try to address this issue.
Yeah, so just so everybody understands the process of the interim study motion, which would occur when we vote on it in October, the end of October. What that means, that would then be taken up on the House floor the first week of January. And that means, that interim study means that that bill is going to remain in this committee. And so that we will have any opportunity to revisit it all the way up till a year from now. Okay, and a year from now, all those bills that were interim study will be taken up with the same process. And in that case, it would be, the motion can either be recommended or not recommended for future legislation. So what that means is that we're holding your feet to the fire about these rules. We are going to look, and we've done this before with other bills. We've done it with the health, well, I won't get into it, but but it's rulemaking. Okay, that we are monitoring the rulemaking, and so that what we would look at come a year from now, we would look at what the rules that it did occur, what was occur, and whether we think that you guys did enough, and that would be the motion to recommend or not recommended for the future legislation. Is that, everybody understand? Follow that bouncing ball? Okay. All right. Yes.
In a year from now, the rules should be in place.
Exactly.
And some of the other work where you've done, we should be in a good position to be able to report out publicly about some of the things that we
Yeah,
found.
and then obviously it could be things that statute, the legislation that you're going to be working on, and that can be stated in that meeting. That's right. And of course, with them, we can get a chance to sponsor it, assuming we're all ready for reelection. Okay. Yes, Representative Miles.
Commissioner, what do you say to someone who asks you, are you concerned at all for providers withholding certain procedures from patients in need because the provider has now, as a result of this, become concerned that their payment may be clawed back or rendered not appropriate? And now, in addition to the providers just being, obviously they try to do the best for the patients with their practice, procedure, knowledge, but withholding treatments and procedures because they can't afford to run these practices and then have these major clawbacks upon insurance audit. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm always concerned when there are barriers to access to critical care. And I will say that the examples and the cases that I've seen that are by far the most frustrating for me are instances where the provider has done seemingly everything that they're supposed to do in terms of what's prescribed for in their contract. So they've made sure that the individual that they're treating, their coverage is active. They've made sure that they've gotten the appropriate prior authorizations if they're seeking a particular type of medical treatment or surgery. They've billed to the best of their ability and knowledge the appropriate codes for all of that treatment. And then later find out that despite all of those steps and despite the fact that they, in good faith, followed everything prescribed in that contract, then have that fall under the scrutiny of an audit, and that causes them anxiety, to your point, about how they go forward to treat patients. Yeah, no, of course that's a concern. And that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at very carefully, both on a specific basis, which investigations will allow us to do, to really get in, as I said, to the nuts and bolts of it, but also to try to make sure that we are putting appropriate guardrails around the process itself so that we're not generating that anxiety and doing anything that would further bolster any barrier to that critical access.
Follow up.
The only
I
thing I'd
just-
add to that real quick is that we don't want to overstate this issue. The overwhelming majority of claims that are submitted are paid out within 30 days. There is no issue with those. There's a smaller portion that sometimes are denied, sometimes get clawed back, sometimes need reprocessing, but overwhelming amount of claims are paid on time. This is definitely an issue, but it's a much smaller issue. And oftentimes when this comes about, it's a specific code or a specific type of service. It's not going to be generally the entire practice, but that could happen. But that's not the norm of what we see in these instances.
So would there be a list of triggers, or would there be pattern recognition through payment integrity software, or what does it look like?
It,
All
it
of
can
the
be
above.
all of those, yeah.
Yeah, all of the above, really. And one of the things that I'm really fascinated to get a better understanding of, and it might just be that because of the stress and the dire impact that it has on some of the smaller providers that we hear from them more often. But one of the things that's a bit of a head scratcher for me, and again, there may be a perfectly reasonable explanation for this that the investigation and data collection will help me to better understand. But when you've got a behavioral health provider that is getting tripped up and keep getting sucked into these audit processes, it's a little odd to me in the sense that the behavioral health space has a fairly limited number of billing codes that they operate in. And so I'd like to try to understand what's getting triggered, given the fact that they're only really dealing with 2 to 3 billing codes. You know, if we were, and this is an issue that impacts providers across the board, but intuitively, I think it would make a little bit more sense to me if, you know, hospitals were really getting hit hard by this, and it's still an issue for them. I don't want to ignore that. But if hospitals were getting really hammered by this, again, intuitively, it would make a little bit more sense because the universe of codes that they deal with is so much more vast and various that because of the number of those codes, it would make sense that percentage-wise, something would get messed up and trigger that whatever protections are in the carrier system that would throw off those red flags. But the BH one is a little bit more difficult because of, again, those narrow set of codes that they deal with. We'll find out. That's an interesting question, at least for me, and we're going to try to get to the bottom of that.
So, Representative Miles, I want you to know, I absolutely believe AI is at fault here, and I absolutely believe that I've told the department my attitude is that these letters, these form letters that go out, as he was describing, that may be inappropriate, that form letter it should have a human being owning it. Okay, that AI might spit it out, but a human being's got to sign it and own it and have a phone number and a contact so that the provider can contact them directly. And I said, and finally, it should be CC to the department, and that way they can then track, what's going on and trending. So that was my 10 cents on this bill. So, but at the end of the day, we'll keep it around and keep an eye. All right. Well, you can stay there for the moment.
I figured I'd just
Yeah,
stay
just
put.
stay. Okay.
Yeah.
So normally I would say that we're all set with ground ambulance services until I read the newspaper, my Keene Sentinel, and then of course NPR picked it up, and that and as some of you might know that my county has decided that they too should be in the ambulance business, and so that means as a member of the fiscal committee of the county, I too am now been drawn into the financing and the economic impacts of ambulances, and they claim about 1 in 10. And I have a call in, and I think the chief said that the reporter asked a question and just kind of responded, and maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure whether he was saying the impact of the new federal mandate about how, you have to have a job. Whether that was going to be the same 1 in 10, I'm not really sure where he was going with it. However, again, I still had the same conversation with our fiscal of the county and about the issue of treat no transport. And this is an important issue to me, and that is that I see no difference in a person arriving at an emergency room or one of these community, whatever MDs, and getting medical care, and they have their insurance card, and they're having deductible, they're having copays, whatever. But that at the end of the day, there's a reimbursement to them. That if a medic is showing up at the site of a 911 call, then yes, I do really believe there should be billing. What we had heard was that the ambulance companies didn't want to be bothered, and so that I with the billing.
The billing piece.
They didn't want to have to collect the insurance information. So when the person says, no, I don't want transport, then the ambulance shouldn't just say, okay, goodbye. They say, okay, where's your insurance card? Okay. Now that 1 in 10, the implication was that the 1 in 10 was people had no insurance at all. But one of the things we had learned was that 80% was Medicare, Medicaid, and TRICARE. So maybe the ambulance companies don't understand what the reimbursement or what that is, and I myself am kind of interested to make sure we really understand. I will be wanting to hold a hearing. I'll be using this bill number, but that I want to be holding a hearing on this, focusing on that issue. So whatever you guys can bring and let's figure out how we can make sure that these insurance companies really that this is available, and that this really just a provider, the ambulance company problem, not the insurance companies telling them, no, they can't get coverage. They can't get reimbursed.
So I would just add very briefly, first, some good news, which is the implementation of the newly passed ground ambulance bill, broadly speaking, is going well. In terms of the second cost study, that is, I think, the bids were due last week, and I think it's being scored later today. So that process is moving along well. They're going to want to take advantage of the time that they've got available to really do the deep dive and bring in all of the stakeholders in a way that the first cost study, simply because of the time constraints, didn't have the opportunity to do. And I know Michelle and the team are working on the other pieces of that, including the form and the contract and all of that. So in terms of what we've already done, the implementation of that is going well as of today. Representative Hunt, to your point, when I first really dove into this issue and convened the quote-unquote ambulance summit back in July of 23, this treat no transport issue was one of the top 5 issues that the providers had identified was a problem. And we took that seriously. And as we were working on the legislation that was ultimately passed, we attempted to try to address that issue. And to your point, Representative, there was pushback on that. And so we backed off of it. But clearly there's still an issue there that needs to be better understood, and more thought that needs to go into how you address that issue. To just as a quick example, the treat no transport is grandma, grandpa, mom, dad fall down. They're dazed. They're not sure at that point, understandably, whether they're in some trouble or just dazed. So an ambulance is called, they'll arrive at the home, they'll treat the individual. The determination is made that they're just dazed, they just needed some help, that they do not require transport to a hospital. They're okay. Or in Representative Hunt's example, for whatever reason, they don't want to go to the hospital. At present, our understanding is that the ambulance is not reimbursed for that trip. And so there's a bit of a financial hole that exists there for those providers. And again, when we tried to get to that earlier this year, there was pushback on it. I think there was a problem as to whether or not they had the capacity to be able to go through a process to be able to be reimbursed for that. That may be overly simplistic, but that was my recollection.
I think part of it was there's a misconception that insurers do not cover treat no transport. They do. All carriers in our markets confirm they do cover it. We looked into our claims data, And we saw that there's really only about I'm guessing like a handful, but a very small amount of claims for treat no transport that are actually billed. And part of that is because Medicare does not cover treat no transport, and therefore Medicaid was not covering either. I'm not exactly sure where that's at right now because there's been some changes, but those programs do not cover those codes. So that's why there is this misconception out there that insurance doesn't cover it. There are codes, insurance companies in our markets do cover it, but people aren't billing for it. There are a small number of ambulance providers that are consistently billing for it and they're reimbursed, and it doesn't appear to be denials for that code. It's just that it's not being billed with the frequency we would expect.
Right. So the question I had on that is saying that Medicare doesn't cover it.
The government programs do not.
How about supplementals? Do they cover it?
I would
That's a
have
good
to
question.
double check,
That
'cause
was,
sometimes
believe it or not, that was the whole sole
Well-
purpose my wanting to pursue this issue.
Listen,
Is
you know,
that
it's
as someone who is in an Advantage plan,
well,
I want to know whether it's covered or whether it's covered or not.
so let me just, if I may, bookmark this. If possible, I'd love just another minute or two at the conclusion of your work today to provide you with an update on what's going on with Medicare Advantage. If you're not hearing about it already, you will be. So I want to update you on that.
Don't
But-
tell me somebody else is pulling out.
Do you want me to be honest with you, or? But that's a good question, Representative. We can look into that. But to Michelle's point, maybe a piece of this problem for the providers is exactly that outreach, that awareness aspect to it that breaks down those misconceptions that, yes, while again, we know that 80% of ambulance rides are for individuals who get their coverage through one of those two government programs, that does not mean that when you arrive to treat somebody who has commercial insurance, that there's no way to bill for that. There is a code for that. And so maybe it's just that education that, again, not going to solve the problem entirely, of course, but at least solves part of that problem. So they're at least getting some revenue in the door for those rides.
Okay, Representative Spear.
When we talked about this, last, I guess it was spring.
Yep.
When treat no transport came up, it was expressed that it should not be included in the cost analysis. So if we are, it was something that the bill doesn't cover, and so the 325% was not going to include whatever costs were associated with treat no transport, which is what the representative was telling us, the senator was telling us. So if we're going to be pulling this forward and doing something about it, we may have a cost impact that we didn't expect.
So I think with the 325%, that's tied to 325% of Medicare. Medicare does not reimburse for treat no transport, so therefore there is no 325 for treat no transport right now. As part of the cost study, we were planning on including treat no transport in that. And what we're looking at in the cost study is the cost of running ambulance services, and that includes treat no transport. So we are looking into that, and that will be part of the analysis that we do.
This is one of the reasons it's important to me, because this was a gimme from us that because we didn't want that 325, right? But we settled to give it for 2 years. But that going forward after that, that yes, I wanted to make sure that this reimbursement was in the cost study. But it's going. In other words, it's not going to be effective till 2 years from now. Okay, so it's like there's no urgency whether we figure this out now, but in the long run, I want the policy to be clear and be part of the cost study.
And that's definitely one of the issues we can delve into a little bit more, given the extra time in this cost study, because it's not a reimbursable code from Medicare. There's
Exactly.
much more limited data on it, and that's definitely an area we'll really benefit from having the extra time to delve into it.
Great. Okay, so you're going to stick around and tell us more exciting news about.
Can I ask one more question about the current conversation really
Sure.
quick? So you weren't seeing codes for treat no transport, but wouldn't that be because up until recently, most ambulance services weren't in networks for you to be able to gather that data?
So it's not codes, it's claims. We weren't seeing a lot of claims. The codes exist for that. We just weren't seeing a lot of claims.
And
Yeah, and
same
because-
question then, isn't that because they weren't in network?
Not necessarily, because these are often emergency services. So emergency services are covered regardless of whether they're in network or out of network. The in network and out of network goes to what the negotiated rate was. And so for those out of network providers, there's been a lot of tensions and problems in the past because they're out of network, they don't have established contracts, and there's no agreed upon rate, and they were not able to come to agreement about what that rate should be. So that's part of what the new legislation is doing. It's setting the rate, so there's no more disagreement about what you need to pay for these services, except it doesn't include treat no transport because there's no code for that under the Medicare scheme.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Moving right along. All right. HB 454 requiring retailers of fuel blends with 15% ethanol will also offer fuel blends with 10% or lower ethanol content. I talked to the sponsor. He's fine for us to continue to interim study this bill so that if we find that someone actually is doing this, then we can take action on this legislation. So at this point, yeah, that is going to just be interim study. Okay. 312, relative to the right of intercollegiate student athletes to earn compensation through the use of their name, image, or likeness. My understanding of the current situation, this is still a new concept. It's in flux. So again, this is a perfect bill why we want to just hold on to it so that if we find out that this thing takes a turn for the worse in terms of how it affects the students, but at this point, it's rational for us not to weigh in, given that this is a federal court decision, and that we, the states, should stay on the sidelines at this moment. Does anybody have any difference of opinion? Okay.
I don't have a difference of opinion, but I think wasn't this NCAA approved?
The NCAA was part of the negotiating with the court. Yes.
I thought it was a fait accompli.
Well, no, the language that we had in our bill, the NCAA was opposed to it. And we got another letter from UNH. They reminded us. I don't know if you saw that in your emails. Okay. But, okay. Okay, relative to restrictions on acquisition of ownerships and controlling and occupancy. Okay, never mind. This is the bill. We did pass this, and it's in the budget. And I know I don't ever want to look at this bill again.
Is it 162?
162.
That
That was passed in the budget.
I know it did, but what do we do with this? We just kind of let it die?
If this is one we don't have to interim, so we could actually just kill it.
Oh, we can do an ITO
We could, but
when the time comes.
well, the interim study was for the people who really care about this bill. They might make him feel better, but maybe they are okay with, cleaning the house and saying, yes, we've resolved it once and for all, and we're all done.
It's word for word in the budget.
I'm looking to your your fellow representative to your left.
I know.
It is an issue in Nashua.
I like her
and
anyway.
They're also, so I would say, you're right, it's still hanging around there, so we'll keep the bill, yeah, Representative Burrows.
Question, what do you mean it's still hanging around if it's in the budget?
Well, there are accusations of whether this bill would have stopped that transaction from happening or not, if it
Okay,
had been passed earlier.
okay, just a political statement, if I'm allowed to, or would you believe? Would you believe that it is frustrating to go through a committee process in two chambers and to have what we decide ignored and then stuck into the budget? That's my comment.
Fair enough.
You don't have to say anything else.
I don't
I second that
respond to it. It's okay. All right. So they'll interim study that. Okay. 359, speaking of, prohibiting the denial of banking and insurance services based on any factor that is not quantitative, impartial, risk-based, as measured by an objective standard. So yes, I would like to interim study this bill and basically keep an eye on making sure that this doesn't occur. And that if it does occur in New Hampshire, then we need to take action. I would say that for both banking and insurance industry, the two industries that they're pointing out, they are regulated, that they are not, cannot be discriminatory. So the way the bill is written, which is that anybody could take them to court to the court, or because it's 358A. Well, 358A, these institutions are exempt. So the nature of the bill itself, and it's written of having it under the 358A, you know, the Consumer Protection Act, has a problem because 358A specifically says anyone who is regulated in banking and insurance, it specifically is exempt from 358A. So it got huge problems if you want to take it on that level. But at this point, I think it's worth keeping around so that you know, we want to hear the conversation. If something happens, we want to know about it. And yes, this committee will be ready and raring to deal with it if it becomes obvious that some financial institution or insurance company is violating, you know, their restrictions on discrimination. You okay? Okay. Anybody else have a comment? Okay. All right. 427, relative to amending the Uniform Commercial Code. Okay. In my memory, we had two UCC bills. No, this is the one we have, right? 427. And this one, is this your bill, the 427? Yeah, okay. So this one, obviously, the UCC people, you know, folks are adamantly telling us not to pass this bill. And saying that. Well, the whole theory of UCC was that it's uniform across the country. So at this point, I'm certainly willing to you know, interim study it, you know, to keep it around. But, you know, so we can continue to talk about it and see if there's some piece in there that has some legitimacy. Is that okay? Perfect. Okay. All right, next one. Now this one's a fun one. Okay, relative to establishing gold and silver as legal tender. Yes, okay. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to make the comment, it's not uniform across the country, because I was reading up on this last night, as my partner over here does, sometimes late at night. And I was reading all the articles, and there are some states where it's not
Some
uniform.
things are not.
There are
uniform.
some,
That is,
some things
yeah,
taken
some
out,
people
so
can,
I just wanted to
it's,
leave
right.
with that comment.
That is true. But the overall structure
Mhm.
is uniform.
Mhm.
So, but yes, there can be individual pieces that
Differences, yeah.
that those states didn't have a chairman who told them don't muck uniformity. Okay. All right, establishing gold and silver as legal tender. I am absolutely willing to keep this as interim study because it's happening. Well, other states are passing stuff. What I've seen is with some of their first issue was that a lot of states have sales tax. What an awful thing to do.
Oh my God.
And they're charging a sales tax on gold and silver. All right. So they go 3 pages long in their statutes about how they, you know, are going to exempt it or what the nature of exempting it. Okay, which that's not our problem. right? So I guess if there ever somebody wanted to promote a sales tax, we can say first thing you can say. No, I said then you got to solve this problem, right? If you're going to do that, okay. The second thing is that they wanted to have the state set up a system to license and regulate the storage of. And as you all know, John Hunt's rule of licensure, that is, we don't want to be getting in the business of trying to regulate that and how we would make money on it. And they kept saying, well, you can make money by getting fees. And I go, we all know fees are fees are taxes, right? We don't like that. And so there was not too much of going into it, but I would say that I guess I'll take this opportunity just to educate everybody, and that is, why is it written into the U.S. Constitution about the state, being in the gold and silver business? What it was that the Constitution, this is, as you remember, we had the Constitutional Congress before we had our Constitution, and the Articles of Confederation. The problems of the Articles of Confederation was that every state was on its own, and a lot of the states were printing paper money, and therefore, screwing up their state budgets and that. So yes, when they wrote the U.S. Constitution, it said is if a state in its wisdom wants to have its own currency, if it wanted to have its own currency, okay, not about somebody else having it, but if they have their own, then it had to be silver or gold coin. It could not be paper. That's what's written in the U.S. Constitution.
Well, it's 6-to-1 ratio, right?
No, was there a ratio too? Yeah. So at any rate, at this point, I'm absolutely fine with interim studying this and keeping this issue, given that all these other states are doing it, and we love to hear what other states are doing. Yes.
I read a lot of stuff on fusion reactors, and I
Yeah.
found a study where they said a byproduct of the fusion reaction is gold.
Really?
So pretty soon we're going to have more gold than we know what to do with if we ever solve the fusion.
Yeah, if we ever solved it. Right. Right. Well, of course, my family being in the aluminum business, I would have to point out that aluminum and gold are very closely related if you look on the periodic chart, and that that aluminum was actually more valuable than gold. It was more valuable than gold, and so therefore those of my family that were playing with aluminum were known as the new alchemists. Because well, no, they were hoping that they were going to. So in this case, well, I would say, wait a second, why are you only going gold and silver? What about aluminum? It's a commodity too. Right now, the aluminum industry is not doing well. The aluminum industry, the problem is that there are so many countries that are flooding the market, Russia and China in particular. Not that I have any problems with those countries, wanting to buy property here. Sure. but so yeah, so the other story I love to tell is that prior to the AT&T phone company breakup, Alcoa had was the longest antitrust lawsuit for 22 years. And then they were saying that one year that my grandfather was flying down to Washington, every business day in hearings. And the reason why the government kept persisting on that Alcoa had a monopoly and that they needed to be broken up or whatever, even though Alcoa had spun off the Canadian division to create Alcan, that the issue was always that Alcoa continually lowered the price. And that was always the accusations, which I know never really made sense to me because I always thought the problem with monopolies is they're going to start raising their prices. But in this case, Alcoa always kept lowering their prices. And the only way that this lawsuit was finally resolved and finally ended was during World War II. down in Tennessee Valley. Alcoa built 6 aluminum plants for the war effort. And at the end of the war, the U.S. government turned around and sold them to R.J. Reynolds, and took it, even though Alcoa built them. And that was the settlement of the antitrust case. So, at any rate, fun little story. All right. So, relative to the Liquor Commission, does anybody want to investigate the Liquor Commission? Yes.
We did get an amendment, and one of the things we pointed out last time was that it had growlers in there. You know, I mean, it had bringing in your own.
Oh, yeah. What is, maybe I might have the wrong bill. What is 529?
529.
Extends the hours.
Oh, right. I did have the wrong bill. Okay, you're right.
But they took that an amendment. We all got an amendment proposal
Right.
to take that out, so it's gone.
Okay.
And now we should be looking at the new amendment, so we could go look at it, I guess.
Right. And then, but because then what was left was the hours.
The hours and being able to deliver a cocktail with the meal for delivery services that were licensed.
Right. So, so Mike, why don't you come on up here? And I don't think we really need to hear why he's against the
Oh,
hours
yeah.
issue, because we've all heard that multiple times. So
I'm
how
happy
are
to
you
say it
doing? And I see the Liquor Commission is here on this issue of carrying alcohol out of being, I guess, it's sold in the retail environment. It'd be on-premise licensee allowing you to take alcohol off. Are you working on
I
something on this issue?
So yes, so we have been having some discussions with liquor enforcement. They can certainly speak to their piece of it. We think this is kind of a common sense addition to statute. We already can do it for beer and wine. Adding the liquor kind of makes sense. I will freely admit that I think some guardrails need to be put in place about what the container should look like. You know, that it can't be, you know, it has to be tamper evident for an instance where somebody, you know, gets a drink to go with their meal and on the way home just makes the poor decision to open it or something. In those instances, we would want to make sure that was clearly evident if law enforcement would have pulled this person over or something would have happened, God forbid. So, but yeah, our industry likes this, would very much like to see this move forward. I was actually going back and forth with liquor enforcement a little bit over the last week or so, that it might make sense to kind of restructure how this is. So this may end up having to become a study committee, because taking a look at it right now, where the delivery of beer and wine sits in the transportation of beer and wine, but there's a separate section for the transportation of spirits. And so because they're in two separate places, that may get a bit cumbersome and clunky. So we kind of would have to have a discussion with all of you about how we would structure that necessarily. So
Well, you get this bill is your study committee.
that's the hope, yes. And obviously, just to reiterate, you know, we'd love it if we just drop the hours thing.
Right. Well, my experience is that we did pass the hours already, and then the Senate killed it.
That has happened, yes, that's right.
Right. So we could stick it in there just for,
Yeah. And I'll save all this for this.
let the Senate be the bad guy.
Yeah.
Well, because didn't we pass it? Say it still had a local. The community had a vote for it, right?
Correct, yes.
So this bill is different. Is there's no community vote?
Correct.
You know, so do we really want to do that? No, we made a compromise and said let the community vote for it. No, that was more just recent we did that compromise. That we had let the community vote. Did we
Yes.
just pass that last year?
I thought it was last year, yeah,
Yeah. No, that's a different one.
No.
This is different. This was allowing.
you did, I can't remember if it was this past session or the year before, but you did
Yeah, maybe it
pass
was
one.
within
right.
2 years. We
There was
we
a
passed
local option.
that
on
it was
yes.
a local option. The local community.
Because
Okay.
the Senate ITL'd it on the
Okay,
floor of the
we're all
Senate.
done with you. We got I see the commission. You guys can't stand over there. Guy, there's a column. I can't see people. It's right. Thank you, Mike. Come on up. Stop hiding behind that column. Already, I don't like this committee room. I like the sound. I like that it carries. So sound carries well, but I don't like people hiding on me. Okay. Did we pass a bill to allow communities to vote? And how long ago did we pass
I
that?
think it was longer than 2 years ago, but that option is available today. And I think when we last testified, we didn't pull these numbers recently. Matt might be able to speak to this. But there were only 2 or 3 licensees, that actually opted to do this. And it was very specific, the venues that were looking to do it, and it actually went with the time of the year holidays, not 4th of July, New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve, right. But can right now,
So right now, the local municipalities can pass an ordinance to allow the licensees to serve till sell till 2, serve till 2:30. There's 3 municipalities who have done that. Berlin, Nashua have done it, but only for charitable gaming venues, and the city of Laconia only in Wares Beach during the summer months.
so we allow them to have their own restrictions going on.
Correct. So
Okay.
those are the only 3
So at the end of the day, we gave them a chance to vote for it. But yes, that doesn't stop them from having their own limitations. Well, I'm just saying, doesn't that seem good? I mean, tell me what's wrong with that? That seems pretty.
Because I think, I mean, I'll reiterate what I say every time we talk about this issue, but at the end of the day, like, New Hampshire is outside the norm for the state. So if we want to make New Hampshire a little bit more competitive and a little bit more appealing for people who want more social stuff going on in the state, then we may need to, like, there's all the towns are run by people who maybe don't want this or whatever, but that doesn't mean that the people don't want it. Or, if you have,
Well, isn't that what
most-
elections are for? You can throw those bums out.
well,
right?
then why are we regulating it at the state? Why do we regulate it at the state at any level then if it should all be under local control? Like you know what I mean? To me, it just seems like we are losing our competitiveness in a lot of different ways, and social atmosphere in a place where people live is a big part of why people, like younger people, choose to live where they live when they graduate college or when they move. And New Hampshire is the second oldest state in the country, and I believe the fastest aging. Like, it's like a train wreck coming down, and when I'm at the point where I need people to take care of me, there's gonna be nobody here. So it's like, can we figure out a way to make this state a little bit more appealing to
Well,
the
you
to
just
the
got to
older
start
people?
have breeding and have some more kids. and,
Yeah, great. I'll just create a bunch of children. That sounds great. I can pay for it off
That's
the
who
salary
takes
that you guys
care of
give me.
you is your children.
Yeah, guess what? There's a lot of reasons what's going on. All I'm saying is New Hampshire is not known as a particularly exciting place. It's a beautiful place to go on vacation to. It's a great place to go skiing or hiking or to mountains or lakes. But when younger people think of New Hampshire, they're not like, oh yes, that's an exciting state where I want to go live. And I'm not saying this is going to be the panacea that just fixes this problem, but it moves us a step in the right direction. It's just put us on par with our neighboring states like Vermont and Massachusetts. And that's the argument I'm making, and I've seen it with people who literally have said, like, New Hampshire is just boring. I'm not moving there. And I know people, it's an anecdote, but I know an example of people who were a close friend of mine and his wife were looking to move from Boston, and they looked at Manchester, Portland, and Providence. And they quickly ruled out Manchester. And it was between Providence and Portland. They ended up in Providence, but they were just like, yeah, it's just not much going on there. And I think our regulations are part of the reason why we don't have much going on. It's part of the reason why we're a sleepy state, and that is the perception we have. And, maybe that part of it is because we're run by people who, the state is run by, not a lot of young people get much say in the voice because we don't pay people or whatever. But I don't understand why we can't be on par with, like, the norms. I mean, was it 40 plus states in this country?
Well, but you just
do it?
mentioned 2 towns that I can tell you that right out of the block why people would not go there. After spending the summer in Rhode Island, where I could buy THC in the Packy store in a can. Okay, so I mean, yeah, both Portland and Rhode Island have legalized marijuana. So
Yeah.
So you can
New
say
New
it's,
Hampshire, I know. I always say live free or die in slogan only, because live free or die, but you can't be open till 2.
You can't buy cannabis. Like, there's a lot of things we like to be inconsistent with our thing. But my point, I think you get. Listen, New Hampshire is not on the national standard when it comes to these sorts of things that make things more vibrant, more social communities for younger people. And if we want to attract younger people, this is one little thing that would not give us an edge, but just make us equal to our neighboring things. Why is this so controversial? I have no idea. The rest of the country can do it, and the world has not exploded in those states. I don't understand why we're so upset about it.
Because our restauranteurs don't
I
want it.
know, it's because we're all a bunch of old people running everything here. Like, Jesus, let's wake up. I'm like the baby of the house by my age, and I'm a middle-aged man.
Okay.
I think you're overlooking the fact that of the 200-ish, 170 plus municipalities in this state, 3 have opted in on this. That means, and I can tell you, the People's Republic of Keene is about as liberal a place as exists in this country. And it's young people, and it's a college town, and they aren't interested. And so you're not going to turn this into Vegas with snow by changing the law.
Vegas with snow is a funny analogy because I did not even suggest all night. I'm not saying we should be
Well,
wild. I'm just saying we should be equal to our neighbors. Like Vermont does it, Massachusetts does it.
And there's very little that I would want to replicate and I do a lot of business in Vermont, but there's very little that I would want to replicate in this state from what I see in Vermont. My point is, you've got an opportunity that's open that people aren't interested in. If the demographics in this state are such as they are, that people are not clamoring for this changes that you're proposing, why would we make them? I mean, we have
Because
a
we
good.
like to just give opportunities to people. Our
we
job is
have
not
a
to
good.
restrict opportunities. Our job here is to expand opportunities for businesses to run the business model that they think works. And so the businesses can still make that choice. If it's like, hey, if there's no market to stay open till 2 a.m., then they won't do it. Like the free market will take care of that problem. Like
as it currently
one?
does.
What is one?
If you in most of our towns, I would
It
submit.
does. That's a political process, and you know it. If it was legalized statewide, we would see how many towns saw bars that were open till 2, or restaurants because we don't have bars here.
Well,
Another issue.
well, that's on that one. I might agree with you, but I just think
Listen, we overrule local control all the time. We did it with a ton of zoning bills. This
I'm
last time because
well
we
aware.
don't trust.
I guess we're
in
about to
certain
do that
cases.
with pickles.
What's that?
Apparently, we're
Pickles?
doing pickles too.
What's happening with pickles?
Obviously,
followed that?
you don't follow
Oh, I did hear something about
statewide.
pickles.
Oh my God. Anyway, I
We've
just
had
think
that issue in this community.
there's no great hue and cry for this. We have a very successful tourist industry here. New Hampshire's demographics are aging for a whole bunch of reasons that have nothing to do with
No, I think they
distribution and sale of
are.
liquor.
And I said that. There's a whole bunch of reasons. I'm not saying this is going to solve it.
This
It's
isn't
just one
even
thing
this
that
isn't
put us
even in the
on
top
par.
10 reasons for our demographic
And I didn't argue that it
situation.
was. What I'm saying is it's a low-hanging fruit option to pick, and I don't see what the harm is.
Fair enough.
All right.
Okay, we can all agree to
I love having
disagree.
this argument every 6 months.
Okay, so this bill had 3 issues. It had
Good,
the hour
keep people talking about it.
issue. It had the growler. Is the growler where do we? They just took it out, so we don't need the growler. The growler issue is a non-issue. Right, we've already passed it. Growler's a non-issue. So last but not least is, are we going to allow people to take a premixed drink out of a bar, or excuse me, cocktail lounge? So, are you guys ready to work on language for this? Are you guys?
This portion of this bill needs a lot of work. Mike brought up some really good points. He has been speaking with us. Integrity seals is paramount because you have to change so many other laws to include open container in a vehicle and transportation of alcohol in a vehicle.
No, it needs to be sealed. It needs to be puppies. We don't want anybody drinking and driving.
We need to know what's inside that container. It's not going to be a gin and tonic. It's going to be a Mai Tai. It's going to be a Long Island iced tea. What's the ABV of that? With every other container is actually labeled that we deal with in the country, to include the crowlers that are actually put together at some of our microbreweries, that actually write down on the outside label what is the beer or what is the beverage product inside,
Right.
and what the ABV of that beverage is with an integrity seal. So there's work that needs to be done. Can we move the needle on it? We could possibly move the needle on it, yes. But from our standpoint, there's a lot of work to be done.
Okay. Okay, Representative Walsh. Enough. You've heard enough. Representative Sullivan.
I just wanted to understand something. This talks about for home delivery, so this is talking about Grubhub or things like
Nope.
that. It's not talking, no?
It-
Because that's what this,
Yeah, the intent of the bill is
for customers who order a meal for home delivery.
right. That
For
was
home delivery.
right, but we're broadening the subject to address even the home delivery issue. Was that we did not right now we allow you, if you're a restaurant, you could sell a pre-made cocktail like Cutwater. Cutwater has the pre-made margaritas, and they have the pre-made, and they're like 8% alcohol, and the liquor commission has them also. But that, yes, you could buy that, or even a bottle of wine. The restaurant can sell you a bottle of wine which is 14%. You know that you can get a bottle of wine when you're there, but the wine is sealed and it's untouched. What
And-
this issue was, I want that mudslide.
Right.
Okay, I don't know how many women have I heard who said they want their mudslides, and and so therefore, and so the mudslide. The question is, what's in that mudslide, and how do we allow? I mean, to me, isn't it like it's got to stay cold? So the cup has got to be, a chiller cup, right? You half the drink is going to be the cost of that cup. Okay, so, but that's got to be sealed in such a way that they can't just sneak a sip while they're driving home. We do allow people to put wine that's not finished. You can put that, but it has to be in the trunk of the car. Where it's not accessible.
But couldn't we make this, again, to your point, so that it's just including these delivery services and not so that it doesn't?
No delivery services.
So at this
There's no
point, we
delivery
don't allow the
services.
delivery
It's only a
service.
W-2 employee of that establishment can
Exactly.
deliver.
So we never even allow that whole delivery process because, whose liquor license are we going to pull if you deliver to the wrong person?
There's nobody to hold it
So
accountable.
DoorDash is not interested in having a liquor license. Okay. Grubhub.
Thank you for
It's not
sharing.
interested. Grubhub.
I don't like DoorDash.
Okay. All right.
They're out.
Yes, Representative Sullivan.
I have a question. So you said that you need to know what's in the container. Like, is there like a restriction on how strong a drink can be, or like if it's just sealed? You said something. You need to know what's in there. You need to know the ABV of the
Know
beverage.
this, at the end of the day, we're always looking at, making our decisions with the end in mind, and the end might be an investigation.
Okay.
So you have liquid that has been consumed inside of a vehicle, and one of the first places to look is the side of the can to see what a 12-ounce can
I see.
at 3.5 ABV, where even though we're relying on a little of the honor code here
Mhm.
on what somebody puts into that drink, at least it's a start.
Gotcha. All right, that makes sense. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll give you a month.
We're coming up with this?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, why put in a separate bill? Why should I put a bill in? In create a study committee? That's just, I need language anyway. So, this bill is a perfect bill to just do it.
Okay.
Just do it. And I'll give you a month. All right.
Got it.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
So we will have
No, don't go.
the
There's
issue
more.
on what do we call those? Carry out drinks? Okay.
Is it a study?
Well, at this point is that, yeah, we will have a subcommittee meeting on House Bill 529 when they have their amendment ready. All right, allowing persons under 21 into veterans clubs, private clubs, and social clubs under certain conditions. Okay, so Chief, right. I don't know why you guys are hiding from me back there. I can. We're in liquor, right? We got 3 liquor bills here. It's in the last one, you know. Right? We know what you're going to say on the last one. Okay. So this one, the issue was that I guess these veterans clubs actually have often have 2 rooms.
Correct.
They have one room that's the bar, that's got the lottery machine inside it. An
They refer to it as the
ATM.
canteen.
The canteen.
The canteen.
The canteen. And in that, technically, the only people allowed in there are actual members.
Members who are 18 years or older.
18.
Yes. 'cause you have
Not
to be
even
18
21.
No, correct. 18 years or older, you can be a member
You can be a veteran.
and-
Okay,
and be in the
that's true.
canteen.
All right. So
No.
they can't drink. But they
You
can,
can
they
go
can
into
go
the
into the
canteen.
canteen.
So the typical setup is there's the canteen area, which is the members only section. So they're governed by the administrative rules where members only are allowed. Members can be 18 years or older. The veterans clubs can determine if they want to restrict that based on their own bylaws. But a member can't be under 18. So the canteen area, which is the members only area, is an 18 plus area. Many of them have an additional room where they can get a supplemental license to extend the bar service to that supplemental room, where they typically rent out for functions or public events, you know, their meat raffles or bingo nights. Those areas are anybody can be in there depending on the event that they're having. What this is looking to do is make the canteen area allow children under the age of 18 in that area, accompanied by a parent, guardian, or adult spouse.
To further that,
Didn't we pass a bill last
good luck.
session that said no kids could be in a canteen area? We heard from.
This was the bill that we,
This is that bill?
and we interim studied it.
It looks like it's reworded. Okay. I hate it.
Yeah.
Just my thought, I see a lot of, not funeral services, but sort of life refreshment type things going on in these veterans. Well, I mean, they have refreshments for a,
Right.
They're called mercy meals.
No, he's
Well,
saying receptions after a funeral.
Right, that's called a mercy meal.
yeah,
Right.
celebrations of life
Celebrations of
that I assume that kids could go to that.
They can, because they're in the rental rooms. They're not in the canteen.
That was where I was about to
Okay.
go, was that there is 2 rooms. There's the canteen, and then there's the ballroom, the
Correct.
in our case, we have the meat raffle in Ridge. And so yeah, that's an open space, and that usually has the food facilities. In other words, the cheeseburger,
Correct.
hot dog.
Correct,
Is in
and
that
they
facility.
can extend their license to those rentable rooms. Those rentable rooms are not age restricted. In fact, if you see, there is a change to this to allow persons under the age of 21 in the rentable rooms without a parent, guardian, or adult spouse. But the specific language, the main reason for this is to allow children in the canteen area, which is the members only area.
Right, and for the longest time, well, I guess even today, that's the one place that you're still allowed to smoke. And then a lot of them have banned smoking in those rooms, but there was potential that there could be smoking going on in there. So, yes.
Okay,
What you said.
I'd like to add on to this a little bit. There are clubs, American Legion Post 27, of which I'm a member, has a restricted area outside of its building, which it uses like a function room, for sure. And I want to make sure that's covered.
That would just be an extension of service of the area.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We heard a pretty horrible story the last time this bill was presented by someone who brought a small child, 5 years old, into that canteen area and was giving them drink. And oh, by the way, that person has recently died. I don't think little kids belong in this place.
They can't be in the canteen, period.
But
This would allow them in the canteen.
yeah, but this would allow them in the canteen. But the question I have is that we allow them in cocktail lounges.
Accompanied by a parent, guardian, or adult spouse.
Right. So if we just amend this bill to say that there has to be a parent there,
no.
I think it already said it, didn't it?
That's what this bill is looking to do.
Yeah. So what's wrong with this bill?
But that's what it was the parent that did it to the kid.
Well,
Yeah, it's in there. It's right here.
right. So it's unless accompanied by a person who, no, it said person who's 21 years old. So we need to amend it to say accompanied by a parent or guardian.
Or adult spouse.
So what is the, Chairman?
What's the difference then between them and a cocktail lounge?
I don't know what the definition of a cocktail lounge is. I only know what happened
Okay,
in these
cocktail
cases.
lounge is the bar in a restaurant that is allowed to stay open after 9 without food being served.
Maybe they shouldn't, maybe little kids don't belong in there either. I don't know.
Chairman?
I don't know, but there are people who are wacko enough to
Okay.
do this to their own kids.
Okay, I always have total faith in the parent making the
What
right
planet are
decision.
you on?
I'll remind you of a bill or two in which Democrats have pointed that out, that
Hey, look,
parents
I'm not-
should be
I'm not a
responsible.
hard and fast Democrat, so don't
Okay,
worry.
I'm just pointing out, there's a bill or two that I think that was pointed out on the floor, that if a parent says it's okay. So, Representative
Chairman?
Ross.
I just wanted to mention that, not that we, want to model ourselves, but in England and Ireland, kids go into pubs with their parents all the time, so it's,
the alcoholism rate in at least one of those countries.
oh, and, it can be France, it can be Germany, it can be Czechoslovakia, I
Or
mean, whatever.
Mexico?
Right.
Chairman?
Yes,
I just want to understand, like, what exactly the purpose we are trying to solve by this bill? What is the issue that we're trying to
the
solve?
problems being solved is that Representative Notter, who introduced the bill, said that it was very awkward. Somebody wanted to have, he had his kids with him, and he was not allowed to go into this facility with the bar where he gets evidently cheap drinks, and that he wanted to go there and
the minor
wanted
kid.
his friends were there, but he was not allowed to because he couldn't not bring his kids with him. And we didn't want him to leave his kids in the car.
Well,
The question may be, maybe what we need to do is to stiffen, I don't know what the penalties are for people who allow their underage kids to drink in these places.
Well, they cannot drink. They cannot.
I know, but there are still people who will allow their kids to have alcohol. in
No,
those places.
that at this point we're not going after the parent. We're going after the server.
Okay.
The server has a responsibility. That's one of the two golden rules.
Mhm.
No over serving and no serving anyone under 21.
Maybe if the children still need a babysitter, we should lower the age to 12 and under. Therefore, the 12 to 21-year-olds aren't going to be exposed to this, and they can stay home alone.
The home alone age, I have noticed as a grandparent, can really vary from family to family.
But if the problem was that the man didn't have other childcare, and this is a seemingly one-off scenario, do we really need to legislate this?
Well, I think
That's what I'm
I think that right now, in terms of legislating, is we say they can't come in. So I'd like to do a subcommittee and take up the amendment that it's not accompanied by a person who's at least 21, that it's accompanied by a parent or guardian.
How do you answer that somebody, that person wants to go to casino and then the casinos allow the same thing?
I believe they're allowed to have kids inside the casinos,
No,
right?
they're
Do we
not.
have any regulation on age inside the
You
casinos?
go to Nashville Casino, they're
No, I don't know. Is it,
They don't.
what does it say? What do they say there?
You can't take, I think, under 18 or something.
Right.
You can't take inside.
But I don't know if that's a state regulation or that's just a policy of that facility. So,
No, they have restaurant, they have other things also inside, but they don't allow you to go inside.
Right. right. Okay, is it, do people come to you, or is it, you guys think I'm crazy? Interim study, no, I'm saying I want to do a study committee to amend the bill. I want to have another meeting on this bill for the sole purpose of amending the where it says accompanied by a person. I don't want a person, I want parent or guardian. And that way makes it the same as our cocktail lounge statute.
And I believe the representative did say her husband was receiving a plaque or accommodation or something. And that was.
They should, right, but they should, if that was true, they probably wouldn't be doing it in the canteen.
Right. I was just saying that.
Yeah, exactly.
Since we were
Okay,
talking about
well, we can take it, all right. Needs guardian amendment. Okay.
the big one.
All right, last but not least, 186. So, yes, because they have had very specific instructions from the executive. The governor told them they are not allowed to work on this bill. So that's why Elvis has left the house. So here's the pickle we're in. I have a brilliant idea to solve this problem, but knowing full well that the governor is going to veto no matter what we do, then is it really worth it to pursue this? Okay.
No.
So. Here you can hear what it is, and then you can all decide how brilliant this is. And that is being in Rhode Island and overwhelmed, just overwhelmed by how much product has THC in it now. And so the issue was, as actually Representative Miles' good friend Tim McGee pointed out to me, always was the smell of marijuana. So we could legalize cannabis. We could make it so anybody can sell it, but it has to be in a canned product. Canned product. That's what there's on.
Like gummies in a can.
If I told you the names of some of these things, you're not going to say, "Oh, gee, I've never heard it." She will veto it. But the issue is, the issue is that the two problems I heard, what I heard why we lost the bill, okay, was that people didn't like that we were restricting it to, only to the state liquor stores, that we were, we're limiting to who could sell it. And then we had very limited licenses, okay? They were very concerned about, these cannabis shops opening up all down the streets and, the cannabis rows that you see in Maine. And most importantly, people didn't want to smell it. They just didn't like the smell. So Rhode Island has solved that problem, and they just simply say that the only way you can get your cannabis, and in this case, they limit to the beverage in terms of their liquor stores. Because they have liquor stores. They have the Packies. But they're only limited to 5 milligrams, the 5 milligrams of THC, which is your basic gummy, which is the Massachusetts law is that, when you buy, they have to be 5 milligrams. So you're limiting it to that 5 milligrams for the packies. And then of course, if it's going to be higher than 5%, well, then it could be sold in the state liquor stores. And everything showing that why liquor is taking a beating right now in the marketplace across the country is that it's THC is stealing customers. And so why not let people buy that? There's certainly going to be THC marijuana growers out there who will probably want to do something higher than 8%, and then we just stick those in the liquor stores. People say to me, "Oh my God, you mean we could have something that's like 80 proof and marijuana?" Well, I'm of the school, and I'm in terms of where's my education on marijuana? Well, yes, I went to high school in college in the 70s. Okay, so that I've never heard of anybody dying from an overdose of marijuana. Okay. Okay, and so therefore my issue is that it's actually almost better if that's what people bought in the liquor store rather than a bottle of Jim Beam. But I'm open to what the committee wants to do. But like I say, is that the governor will veto whatever we do. Representative Herbert.
Just a conversation I had with one of the biggest growers of marijuana in Maine. I would regulate it because I asked him, I started talking about it and I was thinking about the regulation and whatnot, thinking about it. And I said, wanted his advice. And he says, don't do it. And I said, what? You grow the goddamn stuff in Maine, right? You're probably rich because of that. But he said, there's only like 4 types of marijuana, he said, that are any good. And if you got everybody doing whatever they're wanting to do, he was telling me you're going to have a problem because there's a lot of crap floating around. And he just said there's 4 brands, it's not brands or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
He said 4 safe, good, wine. But he said no. He says do not open it up. So he said if you're going to do it at all.
Well, I'm not opening it up.
regulate
I'm not opening. I'm saying is we're taking licensed stores that are already licensed today.
Right.
Okay, in terms of the beer and wine, the convenience of the off-premise licensees.
Right.
We're capping it at 5 milligrams in terms of what their product is being sold at. And that anything over that would then be sold in the state liquor stores. So we would be treating it just like alcohol in terms of our regulatory authority. So we're not giving any special privilege to anybody to own that marketplace.
Which is
But-
what he was telling me.
And that if you look at what's going on in other states, this is easily would bring in $30 million a year. Representative Sullivan.
So, well, a few things. First of all, Rhode Island, you can buy weed in stores.
Yes,
they have
true.
those stores.
They do have weed stores. They're slowly opening up, but yeah.
That exists. So it's not like they only sell it in stores. My understanding is the THC in drinks largely falls under like the hemp regulations at the federal level. And I think if we want to do something as you described, we should have a separate bill that is everything you just laid out and have it regulate under hemp and look into the best way to do that versus adjusting this bill. I think at the end of the day, one of the products people want is cannabis that they can purchase and inhale, and the gummies that come with it and all those sorts of things. And I think we should try to legalize it in some form similar to what's in this bill, which is basically this very similar form to what we've already passed the House already. And that's what we should do. And sort of the same argument that I made previously, which is, yes, the governor and most likely the Senate are going to kill this bill, right? Like, whatever. But that's on them, and that's on them to their voters. Most people in this state want it. So, like, our job is to not make the governor's reelection campaign easier if this turns into an issue. Like, that's not our job. It might be the job of some people in this room who was there, but
I
like,
don't think it's going to affect her campaign because she ran on.
maybe it
on
won't,
making
maybe it will,
clear.
maybe it won't. But the reality of it is like, we're not here, like, we are equal to her. We're not here to do her work. We're supposed to be an equal branch of the government, and we're supposed to pass what we think is right. And this body, the House, has passed a very similar to this bill several times, including my first term, your first term, your first term, a bunch of our first terms. And I mean, it's very similar language to that. And so I think we should stick with that. And if we want to talk about your idea with selling THC within the Liquor Commission, there's no reason we can't do a
No,
bill.
but I don't want to do marijuana. I want to do. I want to just sell milligrams. I don't want to. I'm trying to avoid selling the plant.
Yeah, so
selling
I
the
don't think
weed-
we should
selling
do that.
weed.
I don't
want
support
to.
that idea.
I'm responding to a fair portion of the people who voted against. Obviously, it wasn't you you had your own reason why you voted against it.
Mhm.
Okay, but that the people when we lost by 4 votes, there was a good chunk of people voted against it because they just they don't want Red Rock.
Yeah, but we still-
Here in New Hampshire,
But we
where
still
you can't
passed-
go to an event without getting stoned, just breathing
Yes,
in
but
the
that's
air.
clearly not the problem because the bill we sent over to the Senate was not different on that front. The reason it failed in the House when we did the non-concur was because people were disgusted by the model. They weren't disgusted by the smoking, or not enough of them were
That's
disgusted.
you.
No,
That
no,
was
John,
you.
because we passed it over to the Senate. Then there was the whole committee of conference. That's where we lost by 4 votes. And so what changed? It wasn't the smoking part that changed. That's always been in the bill. So if that was so offensive to kill it in the House, it never would have got out of the House. So like your logic doesn't hold up on that front. I'm not saying there's some people who don't like it. I know one of my favorite people right here doesn't like it, right? But like that, we passed it out of the House knowing full well that people would have to smell it. And that wasn't enough to kill it then. So what caused enough people like myself to flip was because it was a rotten model that they sent back to us from the Senate. So I don't think that that's the hurdle. That's not the hurdle. The smoking fear is not the hurdle. The hurdle is the corrupt model that would have been in place with that system, or what we thought would be corrupt. And so I think if you like the idea of selling things within the Liquor Commission, I think there's a way to accomplish your goal through a different avenue. But we shouldn't dilute this bill, which has passed the House already in very similar language, and keep sending the signal that this is what we want. So that's my stance on it.
Okay, Representative Walsh.
And it's my bill.
It's your bill.
I mean, I just don't want to dilute the bill and negate. Like my values are tied to this. This is
What
my
I have
bill.
to say is I don't want to put a lot of time and effort into working on it.
Then we don't have to. We can pass
We
it
could
as is.
Just pass it as it is, and
that works
and-
fine. I mean,
and
we know where it's going to go. Then
pretend-
let's send let's virtue signal that this is
pretend
what we
like
think it
just
should
see
be.
whether the Senate.
We know that the Senate's going to kill it because the Senate couldn't even pass the bill last year on the language that the bill that I sent to the Senate, that we sent to the Senate last year, was their language from their amendment. I took that away. I took that out, trying to make it more appealing to them, because that one was just to legalize, and they had changed it. It was from the amendment that they did with the replace all for the bill that lost by 4 votes, was all Senate language. I took that language almost verbatim and put it in the bill we sent them. They're just going to kill it because Kelly Ayotte doesn't want it. That's fine. That's on them. But like, we tried to do a good faith effort using Senate language. They killed it. They're going to kill it no matter what. We know that, but that doesn't mean we just bend down. It means maybe we don't put a lot of work into it. Fine. Let's send something we think is good. This language has passed the House already last term, very similar, on the first year of my first term. And we should just send it over to them and let them be the ones that are pissing off New Hampshire voters who care about this, you know? Maybe there's not enough of them to cause their elections, or maybe there is. We'll find out. But it's not our job to, like, if we believe that we
I
need
got
to
it.
do that.
Okay, Representative Walsh.
I think if I understand your model, that items that are less than 5 milligrams or 5 milligrams or less would be sold at convenience stores. Is that correct?
It could be, but it would be behind the counter, just like you would have to be,
Yeah.
like now if you try to go through the grocery store and that it with beer, that somebody has to come over and check
Yeah,
to
as,
see
as
that
long
you're-
as it's like alert, because it's the convenience store. This is still highly addictive to teenage males. And there's all sorts of data on that where
Highly
if they use it,
addictive?
yes, where marijuana is highly addictive if they use it every day.
Is beer
It
highly
leads
addictive
to
too?
schizophrenia. Beer doesn't lead to schizophrenia that I know of.
The beer is not addictive.
THC is
So-
highly associated with new onset psychosis in
Yes.
young men.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
And what I'm hearing is that that the marijuana is also getting much stronger, year by year. So even
That-
if
in this case, that doesn't matter because in both bills, the actual amount of THC is regulated. So even if it was strong, if the marijuana was stronger, that just means less marijuana is going into the product that's being sold. Because it's measured by the THC.
I'm not too sure about that part, but that's what I'm
THC
hearing.
is the active ingredients of marijuana.
Okay.
I can get you some great stuff from Maine.
Maine,
I don't do it, so-
Maine actually is, did, because they went to 10%. 10 milligrams, excuse me, not 10%, 10 milligrams. Whereas Massachusetts is 5 milligrams. I have no idea what Vermont is. Anybody know what it is? Okay, so maybe we'll just have a straight up and down vote on this bill as it is. Okay, and,
You won't give up.
so that'll give something for the newspaper to report. Okay. Okay. And I'll recognize you to make the motion about to pass. Okay. All right. That's everything. You're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will try to be quick, as I know I'm now in the precarious position of being the one standing in between you and lunch.
We don't even know where the lunch is.
The digs aren't bad, though. It's pretty
Is it
nice.
done? The cafeteria done here?
No.
No, not yet.
Yeah, like I say. I'm going driving to Tandy's.
So in any event, I wanted to provide you with a bit of an update as to what we are seeing taking place with the Medicare Advantage market. So as you recall, last year, or earlier this year rather, you had a spirited discussion with some folks who had brought a bill forward related to Medicare supplemental. A lot of the individuals who came forward in support of that bill were individuals who were in Medicare Advantage and were not liking Medicare Advantage. Well, their salvation may very well be at hand, though probably not by the means in which they expected it to be. I'm not going to try to be hyperbolic or to needlessly excite people, but from what I am observing, the Medicare Advantage market as it exists today is collapsing. And there are a number of different reasons for that, and I've spent an incredible amount of time familiarizing myself with a product that I, in my department, in no way, shape, or form regulate. But because of the impacts of this, we obviously have consumers coming to us for information. And as I've told you before, while we do not regulate or oversee the two government programs, Medicare or Medicaid, there's a nuance to that in that we do oversee Medicare supplemental. And that market is going to be very much impacted by what is going on. So in short, so far as I can tell, and this trend started last fall, when a number of carriers withdrew from the Medicare Advantage market. They significantly narrowed their offerings. And in one case last year, a carrier decided to no longer write in one county. That impact last fall, the impact of that last fall impacted approximately 44,000 Granite Staters, which is approximately half of the Medicare Advantage population in New Hampshire. And I keep using approximate because the federal government is the one that actually maintains all of this data and these records. Sometimes they share, sometimes they don't, sometimes we're able to get a hold of it through other means. But that's a rough picture of what we saw last fall. Well, the second half of that is now coming. And as you know, we asked for, and you all helped us get passed into law, legislation that requires carriers who are going to withdraw or significantly change their Medicare Advantage offering to notify the department in advance so that we know that it is coming. The effective date of that law is actually Saturday, this coming Saturday. However, a lot of carriers have been kind enough to preemptively get into compliance with that. At this point, the specific conversations that I've had with some of the carriers are confidential. They still have to follow the CMS prescribed process to notify their members of what is going on. But I can tell you that there is going to be significant disruption. We are hearing from agents and brokers across the state that there will be counties where there will be no Medicare Advantage offerings. There will be counties that have one carrier that will continue to offer Medicare Advantage. There will be fewer players in that market. There will be fewer offerings. So we are doing everything that we can as a department to get out in front of this within the bounds of the law and the confidentiality requirements that surround a lot of this. We're putting documents together for consumers. We're putting a letter together to agents and brokers. We're going to work with the New Hampshire Independent Agents Association to get that disseminated. But I suspect that you will also hear from a number of your constituents as well, and so we will get all of that information to all of you. So the question I'm asked is, why exactly is this happening? Again, so far as I can tell, this is a culmination of a number of changes over the past couple of years down in Washington. It started with some regulation changes around stricter requirements on benefit designs and network adequacy, and it really came to the forefront of a problem when the federal government last year decided to, depending on how you want to look at it, either reduce the federal payments, but again, from what I can tell, and I'm not going to be anything other than perfectly honest with you, I'm not a Medicare Advantage expert. It appears as though the arrangement was such that the federal government was going to keep up in their payments into this program to keep pace with the cost of inflation. And then for whatever reason, that did not happen last year, and it has not happened again. And so carriers at this point, those that remain, have now experienced at least 2 years of significant losses in that market, and they are making adjustments in accordance with that. So again, we're beginning the outreach process. I wanted you all to be aware of it. We will pass all of that information along to you. Once we get past this immediate disruption and we can help consumers find whatever it is they want to do next, which part of this will trigger them having an opportunity, and again, this gets to the heart of the legislation that was discussed this past winter, I believe it was, where they will have an opportunity for a new enrollment period, a special enrollment period, to switch from Medicare Advantage into a Medicare supplemental plan without needing to be underwritten. So a number of the folks that you heard from at that hearing, I suspect a good number of them will be impacted, and they will have the opportunity to go into a Medicare supplemental product if they wish. Now, again, my concern as commissioner, and I think the concern of a number of the members of my team, is if you have a significant disruption along the lines of what we're seeing in Medicare Advantage, and you see the kind of mass migration into Medicare supplemental, what is that going to do to the health of that market? I don't know yet. So far as I can tell, the carriers that I've spoken to, they're not yet sure either. There's work that they need to do. But you can believe that I will be on them to make sure they are doing that analysis. And if there are things that we as a department need to do to make sure that we don't have a destabilization of that market, we will do that. If we need legislative assistance, I'll obviously come to you and have that conversation. But there is a lot going on right now, both in terms of what people are going to experience in the next couple of months and in terms of what the long-term condition of the med sup market's going to look like. But we're on top of it, and we're going to do the very, very best we can, again, appreciating that in terms of Medicare Advantage, we have no say. In in terms of how it's administered, in terms of how this is all going to play out down in Washington.
Question? One of the things we talked about last time also, and it's a fear of mine, is that when we start not having, a period where you can have pre-existing conditions, usually it's about a year or something like that, the cost of the Medicare gap plan for those of us who are already on that plan will go so high that a lot of us are going to lose. We won't be able to afford our insurance. Is there any thought given to that?
In terms of what represent?
Kind of whatever implementation ends up, that those of us who have been on the plan for 20 years or whatever aren't going to lose our insurance either. I mean, yes, I worry about the Medicare Advantage people, but at the expense of those already on Medicare, it could be devastating.
So you're talking about if you're in a Medicare supplemental
Right.
plan, what the impact on your premiums is going to be? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Those are exactly the conversations I'm having with the carriers. How are you planning for this? And it's not simply what the health of the risk pool, simply put, is going to be such that it drives the premiums, but also, do you have the appropriate infrastructure in place for when you see these large numbers of people that will be coming into these products? Are you going to be able to handle this? I mean, there's a logistical aspect to this as well, that again, I'm really trying hard to get the carriers to start thinking about right now.
Just a quick question. Are the carriers that have the supplemental plan, are they thinking about maybe restricting people that come over from Advantage into one of the lesser plans? Or they're going to give them the whole recipe?
I don't know that they can do that, Representative, but let me double check on that.
Well, they actually do right now. You can't get like Plan F anymore.
Right, well, the way we understood it, he mentioned it, which is that when a certain company, won't mention the name, shut down, you had the right to choose to go out, to get out of the Advantage plan and go back into the supplemental without having to do a medical write-up.
Underwriting, yep. Yep.
So the same situation still occurs. If like I'm United Healthcare, and they're the biggest, and I figured that they'll be the last one to pull out of it. Okay, so that if but I have no supplemental pay. I have is what the CMS building. So and my copay is seems like a great plan. As compared to the plan I used to have, I would pay a monthly fee to it. The issue being is if they were to suddenly say, okay, we're getting out of the Advantage, then yes, you could switch back to the supplemental or choose another Advantage with no extra cost. Okay? The issue is what happens, what happens if all the Advantage plans disappear?
As they are in some counties, yeah.
And if all the Advantage plans disappear, then you're in the supplemental, and yes, you're paying more, but in those supplemental plans, they do have different tiers that you can choose in terms of how much you're going to be paying.
So unlike the Advantage people who come over to Medicare supplemental, who have the right to choose this and that or whatever they're going to get the right, those of us who are already on the supplemental, well, we're just shit out of luck.
You're probably going to see your
Last time we talked about it, it was double.
You're saying is that if there was this big influx of Advantage people to the supplemental, that your supplemental premium is going to go up? I would say no, the complete opposite, because now you've got all these extra people who are now paying they weren't paying before.
That wasn't what was brought out. If the insurance department watches out for that, maybe that can happen. But the way it was presented last time,
The way it was presented was that if you tried to switch on your own, not with the supplemental pulling out, but if you just decided to say, oh, I decided I don't like my supplemental anymore, and you freely abandon them and freely decide to get back into the supplemental, yes, there was medical underwriting. Okay, well, medical underwriting, just so you understand, for those of us who've been around since Obamacare, medical underwriting was in the old days. Health insurance was medical underwriting.
I understand that.
So that is the big curse that nobody ever wants, right? Because we want guaranteed issue. Okay, so they're saying is if your supplemental plan pulls out, you have guaranteed issue to go back to supplemental. Your guaranteed issue, does that affect the people who are already in the supplemental? No, I think it actually would benefit.
I hope you're right.
Because then
Very
because
concerned.
now you just put more customers.
Can I
So, Chairman,
get into this conversation somehow?
have they explored the option that if they change from medical advantage to medical supplemental, maybe they are required to pay some extra premium? In that case, the effect on the Medicare people who are already on that might be less or minimal because they have to pay some extra premium. So that you can call it any like penalty tax or penalty premium, whatever it is, but something extra.
If you decide to leave the advantage and go to the supplemental by choice, not because the policies can't.
Right.
No.
You do it by choice. That was what the bill was all about.
I'm happy with my Medicaid program, and I don't have a supplemental. No, it's a disadvantage. It's missing, yeah, it's a disadvantage, and I'm perfectly happy with it. Everything I've had a problem with, just done and, done and done. So my question is my Medicaid disadvantage plan, Medicare disadvantage plan, which I like, going to be damaged? And the second question is, what is the category of what you're getting? In other words, I'm happy with mine, all right? And I've had some issues. I'm happy with my program. Now, I'm worried that all of a sudden everybody's going to leave, and I'm going to be sitting around with the old skinny, Medicare. And so
It's going to depend on who you have your Medicare Advantage with, which carrier you have it with, and whether or not they decide to remain in the market. And if they do decide to remain in the market, whether they're going to continue to offer the particular plan that you have right now.
Yeah.
And you're going to know the answer to that question in the next several weeks. That's right. And, Representative Porcelli brings up a good point, which is the federal government's going to have to make some adjustments as it pertains to open enrollment. This is not a New Hampshire problem by any stretch of the imagination. This is taking place across the country. And so how the federal government reacts to accommodate the fact that there are going to be a lot of people who see their coverage disrupted has yet to be determined. I'd like to think that they try to be as accommodating as they possibly could. If I could, to Representative Spear, I think I understand what you're getting at, which is, what is the impact on premiums going to be as you see these mass potential migrations of people into Medicare Sup? And that has yet to be determined. On the one hand, Representative Hunt has a legitimate observation, which is if you've got a wider, deeper, bigger risk pool, that may be helpful in bringing down premiums. But I don't know, there are instances, and there's an analogous example of this, which is when the state did Medicaid redetermination, and those individuals were redetermined off of Medicaid and returned into the individual market. Not every carrier in the individual market got the same proportion of people as everyone else. Some carriers got more, some carriers got less. And the thing that we know about the Medicaid population is that their utilization trends and tendencies tend to be fairly unique. There's higher utilization there. And so if you are a carrier that took on a large number of those individuals, your experience is going to be different than if you were a carrier that took on less of that population. So there are going to be some things that we don't have data and numbers and answers to today until we see how it plays out. So,
I saw a proposal from Dr. Oz, I guess, is the head of Medicare and
he is,
Medicaid.
yeah, he leads CMS, that's right.
He said his proposal is that everybody has to be on Medicare Advantage for at least 3 years before they can transfer into Medicare. So that the Medicare people have some more money and some more buildup. I don't know. Did that anything ever happen with that?
Yeah, I didn't see that particular testimony, but in theory, that proposal has a flaw in it in that if the Medicare Advantage plan and the carriers don't exist, how can you be in there for 3 years? So, as I said, the most immediate thing that I want to impart to you is when you have constituents who contact you, I want to make sure you have the information that you need to help guide them. You don't want to cause them panic, but they should act quickly. They're,
Are you convinced at least one is going to pull out, or are you just saying that every one of them is giving you stressful looks?
there will be more than one, and there will be names that you recognize. Pull out of the market entirely. I don't know what their status is in other states, but some of the carriers began to pull out entirely of other states last year. They may be pulling out entirely of the market nationwide this year. It really comes down to a financial analysis. What's that?
What carrier is in New Hampshire now that pulled out of another state?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I could get you that list if you wanted. Sure.
Do you know what happened in those states in terms of the people on the plan?
There were at that time, like New Hampshire, enough carriers that remained in the market that those who liked the Medicare Advantage program could stay in that just with a different carrier. Or again, if the carrier was remaining but was eliminating the plan that they were in, they could migrate into a different plan with that carrier. So that's what we saw. Like I said, the New Hampshire experience was similar to what a lot of other states experienced as well. We're all now in the same boat, seeing, again, a lot of withdrawals, a lot of disruption.
So we don't know if there's going to be sufficient number of plans still going to take care of everything.
Right.
But the timeline is fairly short. The runway is fairly short for this, unless,
So again, CMS prescribes a timeline as to when the carriers need to make their decisions, and then to the extent that they are withdrawing or are dramatically changing their plan offerings, there's a timeline that's in place for when they need to inform the insureds that that is going on. Well, it would not impact if they decided to. Right. So yeah, no, so obviously that notification timeline is going to have to predate the open enrollment period because people are going to need to know where they're at. Yeah.
I get it. Okay. What I've heard so far is the worst case scenario, right? That we're all heard about. What is the worst case scenario?
You die.
Is that there is no advantage in your county. Okay, when you've been pulled out the entire state, okay, and that means we all have to go to the supplement. Okay, and what's the worst case scenario is that the supplemental, whereas United Healthcare, I don't pay anything a month, that I'll end up having to pay the $100 a month that I was paying prior to switching to it. Okay. So yes, it's not like we're going to lose, Medicare is going to disappear at all. It just means they're going to force you back into supplemental. If the Medicare Advantage program failed because the federal government didn't honor the increases in reimbursement based upon the inflation. And if they didn't honor it, then they got egg on their face. And but at the end of the day, yes, it just means that we're probably going to have to pay more on a monthly basis because we're doing the supplement. How's that?
It sucks.
That sums it up well. There you go. Thank you.